Welcome to the NFP Podcast, where we explore the empowering world of natural family planning. I'm Amy Smith. Join me and my co-host Emily Appledorn each week. Together, we're here to dive deep into the science, the stories, and the spirituality behind NFP. Every week, we push back against the free love culture and advocate for a culture of responsible love, where intentionality and respect are at the forefront of family planning. Join us as we discuss everything from the practicalities of charting and fertility awareness to the profound impact NFP can have on relationships and communities. Whether you're new to NFP or a seasoned pro, our podcast is your go-to resource for honest conversations, expert insights, and real-life experiences. So grab a friend, settle in, and get ready to be inspired. This is the NFP Podcast. All right, everyone, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi.
We are going to have, I think, a fun conversation today. Emily and I haven't talked about this ahead of time, so we'll see what we come up with here. But when I think it was when we were in high school, Emily, I don't know if you ever watched this on MTV. There was a show called Real Life. It was awful. I mean, looking back now.
Was it Real World?
No, I think it was called Real Life. One I remember very specifically, which is embarrassing that I spent any time of my life watching this. It was like Real Life, I'm a Jersey girl or something.
Okay.
Basically, it was when reality TV was really kind of coming up. Okay. It was a show on MTV and they would highlight, people who were in a profession or people who were in a group of people, Real Life, what was a group of people in high school? Real Life, I'm an emo, they wear black and do all this. And anyway, it was, there's all these stigmas about these people, but here's what they're really like. Here's what their real life is like.
I don't remember this, but I watched
probably because you spent your time wisely.
I watched way too much MTV.
Did you? Okay.
Oh, gosh, yes.
I don't even know is MTV even on anymore?
I don't know.
I have no idea. That's funny.
Sure.
No idea. I used to watch it all the time. Total Request Live after school.
Oh, Carson Daly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, man. It's so funny. Anyway, so I thought about this and I was like, because I think there's some things that I know as someone who says that, I teach NFP sometimes, I feel like it's almost like a bomb goes off in a conversation or people then look at you differently or interact with you differently. So I just thought that'd be, hence the title of the episode, Real Life, I'm an NFP teacher. Just kind of sharing some of our experiences as NFP teachers, maybe things that, quote unquote, bother us or pet peeves, or we feel like there's misconceptions about what it means to be an NFP teacher. So anyway, I thought that would be something fun that we could kind of talk about.
That's
I know
really cute.
In other times we've had those conversations, but
yes,
and to do it on the podcast, I thought would be fun. So do you want to go first?
I mean, to be honest, whenever I tell people what I do, I never use the term NFP. Ever.
What do you say?
So I just say I teach women and go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. What do you say?
I say I teach women and couples how to chart their cycles.
Okay.
I never say NFP.
Even in a Catholic context.
No matter who. And I'm not saying NFP on purpose.
Yeah.
I have just found that, and maybe because I don't remember if I did previously, but just over time, I've just found it's not a shocker when I say things. When I say that, it sounds more almost medical. I'm not trying to sound smarter than I am or anything like that, but it sounds more acceptable, I think. And maybe I feel more acceptable saying it that way. I don't know. But yeah, I guess maybe I know how sometimes it can feel depending on how something is described. This just feels very direct. I don't know. NFP, sometimes that term can give so many people so many different connotations, I guess. I don't know.
I think, yeah. No, I agree. I think I use NFP in a Catholic context sometimes. I think I adjust it depending on, yes, the context and the age of the person. Because I think much older people who were around, like when the rhythm method came out, when the church really started to promote NFP, around the time of Humanae Vitae, those Catholics who followed church teaching were like, oh, okay, NFP is our option. So that's what we'll do. Like, they don't really have a negative stigma around that term. At least that's been my experience, like older people that are like devout older people. They're like, it was harder and it was different, but I haven't met too many people that are super negative about it.
Yeah.
Younger people, I usually say, or just secular. If I'm in like a secular context and they'll say, oh, what have you done in the past, or work, I'll usually say, oh, I teach young girls, or I've taught young girls and I've taught couples about how to monitor their cycle, or I've done reproductive health monitoring. Like, that was the class I taught at the University of Arkansas. It was called reproductive health monitoring. So yeah, I guess you're right. I kind of do use the term. I do mix up the term based on who it is I'm talking to. Because NFP, I think, is just associated with ineffectiveness, Catholic, going to have many, 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 many children. Like, and just sadly, a lot of negative things.
Right. And something that I think people think they have to do because it's a rule kind of thing.
Right. Yes.
So rules just kind of turn people off normally.
True. Yes. That's so true. That's so true, Emily. Yeah. That's so true. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, terms. Yeah. That's definitely something. I was going to say one of my, something I perceive, and I get that this could be wrong, but I don't think it is. Something I perceive, and I don't like to bring this up when I'm in a friend context, because I want to be friends. Like, I want to be friends with you, is if it comes up that this is what I do, or this is what I've done in the past, I would say maybe especially in a faith context with someone of similar faith, or just of a Christian faith, I feel like they immediately think I'm judging them, or they feel very self-conscious about their own family size. And because sometimes, and the reason I say this is because if I say this is what I've done, or this is what I do, usually somewhere within the next 5 minutes of the conversation, they're explaining, their family size comes up.
Interesting.
And the reason why they have the number of children they have comes up. And I'm just like, no, I really like you. Can we not do this? Like, let's just be friends. I don't care. Like, I guess that's the point of me bringing this up. Like, I'm not judging your family size.
Oh,
I don't know
completely.
how many children you should have.
Right.
That's it. Like, I'm not doing that. So, and I feel like it's probably one of those things where it comes up in other areas of life too, where it's like, okay, if you're the one doing that, maybe you're the one that's uncomfortable. Or like your conscience is being rubbed, maybe in a good way or maybe not, maybe in an unhealthy, like there's no reason for you to feel guilty about what you're doing or what your family size is like. Do you know what I mean, Emily? Have you ever felt that?
Yes. I don't even think about it like that. But as you're saying that, I can think of different instances where people feel the need to share, how they got to where they are when it comes to their family size. And I'm never trying to get the answer to that whenever I'm talking about it. But no, that's interesting because I hadn't really thought of that, but I can think of some specifics or immediately, oh, that didn't work for me.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, that's fine.
That didn't work for me.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It really is.
Well, that's where I feel like as the teacher, I always want to be like, did you use it well? I'm like,
right.
I kind of know all the intricacies of this. Like, why didn't it work for you? Like,
feels like there's more to that story. Yeah.
Right. And it's knowing, obviously, it's oftentimes not the appropriate context to follow up with that question, because that would be rude.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm thinking. That's when I start thinking like, what do you mean by that?
Yes.
Like, tell me more. I want to hear more.
Right.
So, yeah. I think that would be, and we talked about this in a previous episode, I think, but yeah, the other part of being an NFP teacher and trying to talk about it in a setting is when someone comes into the conversation and shares their experience about how, this didn't work, and they're super negative about it. And then I feel like that happens. And then like everyone has to leave after that, or like, I can't come in and, gently probe with more questions, or say like, but you don't really chart and you just have sex whenever. Like, oh, that's why.
Right. Like that just gets thrown out there, and then, but it's not in a setting where you can actually have like a one-on-one conversation. It's more of just it like a comment, and then you're like, wait a second, that deserves some attention. Like,
yes,
we could talk about that more if we had time.
Yes. Let's dive into that. Yeah. I think my one that's more, I've heard this on, I think I've heard it on even on like news or just on TV commentary, maybe on podcast commentary when people are talking about family size and how, nowadays we don't need to have big families now, or no, it's not, no, we don't need to have big families now. It's that big families were necessary in the past because we lived on farms and needed a lot of help. And I think about that comment and I think like, well, is it true that back then more people were in an agrarian community or living on a farm? Sure. Is having more helping hands like helpful and great? Yes. Having those people in your family kind of attaches, like if I have children, I get to tell them what to do. Like you go out and do these chores. But is that why people were having big families? Like, no, people were having big families because they were having intercourse and children result from intercourse. And there were no birth control methods. And there was not a knowledge of, family planning as we know it now. There was more like among the tribe knowledge of family planning, right? Women started to catch on like, oh, when I have mucus, like, my, a family member even shared with me once, like, oh yeah, I remember when I was a young mom, there was this expression going around our La Leche League group that would say, when you're wet, a baby you will get. And it was like something so, right, Emily? Like something so simple.
Wow, that is so funny.
Yeah, but something so simple. And we know that, right? There's things that we have within our friend groups that we all talk about.
Yes.
It's like, oh, that's great. That's good to know, or like little tidbits. And that's how information gets spread so quickly,
So true. Yeah. It takes one little catchy thing like that and you can't ever forget it.
Right. And it's not wrong. Like, okay, you're right. Like that wetness is probably a sign of cervical mucus and you have intercourse during that time and you're pregnant and people aren't stupid, right? It's like, oh, within this tribal community, within this community of everyone, like women start to notice, oh, when we have sex here, I tend to have a baby 9 months later.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, just that notion of like, oh, well, we needed big families back then because of this, but now we don't live like that as much. Therefore, we don't need big families. I'm like, well, family size, it wasn't like that because of the farming. Like people didn't have kids because it was of the farming. People had kids because of the nature of sex and the lack of knowledge or lack of resources in order to prevent pregnancy during times of fertility and in not knowing of the times of infertility and fertility. And then those people were helpful on the farm, but it wasn't a causal thing. It wasn't like, oh, well, that's when we need families. Well, now we're not on the farm anymore, so now we don't need big families. It's like, no, we can still have big families nowadays. They just look different. Like people are needed differently. People contribute to families differently. Like that culture is different, but it's not well, now we don't have farms, we don't need big families. So that's something I hear very often that just doesn't hold up to like a logic test. I'm like, no, I think we have to dissect that a little bit more.
Right. So much information has come about in the last 100 years, even with, the progression of how we got to the birth control pill. And then, from there, where we are today. So the knowledge that has been uncovered when it comes to contraception or just contracepting, it has been a lot, in recent times. And so up until then, though, like you're saying, unless the fair majority of information is coming from your, inner circle, I would expect, and, what other women and couples are noticing.
I think too, whatever age you are in, there's going to be struggles to whatever life vocation you're called to, right? So family life has its struggles in every age. So, back then maybe you could say like, okay, they didn't have family planning methods and they had lots of children, but they were able to help a lot in their, in their family life. And in that time, like husbands and wives were working together at home, on the farm. Everyone was working together. And then as you move close, and then as you move into, what were some of the benefits of that? Life was also a little bit slower, right? There's no technology. There was more free play. The attitude towards parenting, drastically different. Like, I'm not trying to get my kid into every sport every season and into every Ivy League college and getting them to dress all of these clothes. Like, I'm not having, the idea of having children wasn't necessarily like, oh, this is a huge financial burden, et cetera, right? There's all these things.
Yeah.
Anyway, you move into modern day culture, right? And just different, cultures just view children differently, and they approach childcare differently. And in our Western American culture nowadays, sometimes I think like, gosh, it's in some ways it's so much easier to have kids nowadays. I think about that with the twins, like people are like, oh, you had twins. And I always get these like, oh my gosh, from some moms, it's the look of like, how did you do this? The look of horror, which I know the look because I'm like, that's how I thought when I was pregnant with them.
That's really cute.
I was like, how am I going to do this? There's going to be 2 babies. But I joke now. I'm like, don't feel sorry for me. I had twins after grocery pickup was invented.
Absolutely.
Emily, I don't have to get in my car. I don't have to take anybody into a store if I don't want to, right? If I plan accordingly.
Yeah.
I go home, like there's a washing machine and a dishwasher. Like there's just so many things that make daily life. We live in just cleaner environments, right? Like sanitation-wise, I'm not having to clean my home all the time. Like there's so many things that make having children easier nowadays.
For sure.
And, but I think culturally though, so those things are helpful. But then the mindset is, I feel like we have, even despite all of these advances, our mindset is still this like, children are a huge cost.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally, emotionally, but definitely financially.
I would definitely agree that there's that idea.
I just feel really grateful. I thought about this when I was pregnant with Max too. Like I just was very aware when I got pregnant with Max, how much my mom approached this, like having children so differently. Like I never got the message growing up that children were expensive. In fact, I heard the exact opposite all of the time, that no, children are not. She's like, you don't need anything. You nurse and you use, my mom, very crunchy, just as a, you can paint the scene, but you nurse and you use cloth diapers and you do these things. And she's like, they had no money when my parents were having us, they had no money. And like, she just didn't see it as an issue,
It's amazing because I actually remember you telling me those words when I was pregnant with Isabella. And I remember you saying, Emily, you really don't need much. I remember. And you painted the picture for me. And I'm like, you're so right. Because that had really not crossed my mind.
Right.
But it's true. And I have since then said that to other women.
Yeah.
Because, it's really true. If you're able to nurse, God willing,
right.
Then there's not much more that comes after that besides either cloth diapers or regular diapers or whatever that looks like. But otherwise, I mean, clothes get passed around like candy, at least where I am. And I'm so grateful for that. And our lives would be drastically different if we didn't have, just generous friends and other people that we don't even know. You get people come out of the woodwork for babies and willing to help. And, speaking of ways to help, I mean, we could speak about just women that have an oversupply of milk. And this topic comes up in conversation a lot. So many women either need supplementation or they have an oversupply, for example. And the gratitude on both ends from the receiving mom of donor milk and then from the mom that gets the chance to give that, there is so much beauty in all of that, I think, because there's so many gratifying feelings on both both the giver and the receiver. It's really beautiful. So I think in general, most women are really open and generous to helping other women. And if somebody needs something, it feels like the majority of women are willing to lend a hand, whether that's a meal or whatever it is. So it's true when you really break it down, because of women's willingness to help, babies are not a burden. Babies are not expensive.
Mm-hmm.
There's always help.
Mm-hmm. And I think, this isn't to be naive and like talking about our, the reality of whatever situation we find ourselves in is, maybe at some point in time in history, culture was such that there were a lot of women that were having babies, and they were having babies together, and they were there to support each other. And that still happens around the world today. Maybe in the culture we find ourselves in now, we're more siloed. Well, okay, maybe that's going to shift then the number of children we have. Okay, that's also a reality, and we can move forward with that too. Or we can also work to change our current situation, trying to foster more community and bringing in resources, or having, resources available within our community that, really support women and families and children, and the process of going through that, and the mental and the physical, all of those that can be hard when you're having children. But I think the way that our culture has siloed itself now, it's made those things even harder. And I think before it was like, well, this is just kind of the norm, but we all band together, we're all in this tribe. Okay, Emily just had the baby. Okay, well, we're all here for her so she can rest and she can sleep. And because we all take turns doing that, because that's just what life is like. And it's a little simpler, and it's what's necessary.
I really feel like the more, I don't know if plugged in is the right term, but the more involved or the more active you are in your church setting, there's so much support there, just in that setting alone. So I really feel for couples that don't have that, or don't just partake in, aren't regular churchgoers, if you will, because there is so much support that just can come from that community, regardless of how many quote unquote friends you have. It's just when people see you every week at mass or at church, and that belly is growing. I mean, it's such an outward sign of, okay, life is coming, and people want to help. They really do. Sometimes it's really hard to ask for help. But I feel like because so many of us know that it can be hard to ask for help, then in turn, it can change, I'll speak personally, it can change my behavior in saying, okay, I'm going to send you this, what day is better, or whatever the case may be, whether it's food, or I'm going to drop something off at, for you, as opposed to, how can I help you kind of thing. Because that is so open-ended. Sometimes it's hard to even, you don't even know what day it is.
You don't know what you need. Yeah, exactly.
So,
you don't even know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, I think, something that I've heard many times, and just as far as like family size goes, of, well, we don't need big families anymore, as if like children are something that, are meant to, if they're not contributing to the work of the family, then they're not needed. It's like, well, no, people are a blessing, not a burden. So
absolutely,
having that mindset, or having that be our mindset. Anything else you can think of, Emily, as an NFP teacher?
We all have so many stories. Every couple is different. You can think you've heard it all, type of thing. But the more you teach and the more you talk to people, there's so many beautiful stories too. And you really get a glimpse of how the couple interacts. Ideally, if both the man and the woman are a part of the appointments and the learning process, if you will. I really prefer that and try to encourage that if it's at all possible with everyone's schedule. And so I think that there's so much beauty in being able to see how other couples interact and work. And
Right.
in my experience, most couples that are trying to learn a natural method, they have a real understanding of each other, and they get each other, and you get to see that personality and those vibes come through in appointments. And I just think it's a real gift to be able to see that, because those are parts of people's lives that we're not normally talking about, at least not all three of us together, maybe as a mom and a mom or a woman to woman. But when you get the male in there, it just provides a real supportive structure. And I feel like the woman, depending on the relationship, obviously, but a lot of times I think they feel a little bit safer and just able to talk about things differently. And it's a little bit more lighthearted, I think, when the man is there. There's just a real beauty that can come out in the learning process. And so I think I would say, for any woman listening that's thinking about trying to learn a natural method, to learn it with your spouse, there's so much beauty in that. And you can really, it's going to cultivate and foster conversations that you wouldn't otherwise normally have. And that can really open yourselves up to each other more and just allow you to grow deeper. So I would definitely recommend trying to learn with your spouse if it's something that's foreign to you at this point.
I think there's been so much taken away from men in our culture with the onset of birth control, and it's fed this notion that, men just want to have sex and men are just in it for sex. Men strongly enjoy sex, and their hormones profile is such that they will desire that more frequently on average than women. But I have found, and this is what I loved so much about teaching that class at the University of Arkansas, was I had less than a handful, maybe 3 or 4 guys that would take the class. And they sat in the back, and I could just tell, like, and I knew because of what they wrote on their assignments and what, conversations I had with them, but like, they loved it. They loved it. And it was almost like this internal battle that I could witness of, oh, well, I'm not supposed to care about this. Like, I'm a man. I just, want to have sex. And it's like, but there's this beauty that he's drawn to in the mystery that is woman. And it's like, I could see this, 19-year-old boy just like, what's going on? Like, having this like real internal struggle of like, who am I? What's happening here? And this wasn't a faith-based thing at all. It was just, here's the beauty of the body. So I think women, we do a really big disservice, not by not practicing natural family planning and by not holding that to be the standard for men, because men also desire that in their deepest of hearts. They want real love with women that they love. They don't just want to have sex.
Absolutely. They want connection in that sexual way.
Right.
And yes, absolutely.
That's what's fulfilling. So sure, you could say, well, no, I know guys, they just want to have sex. Well, yes, because the act feels good. But in our deepest of hearts, we know that our hearts are made for God, right? And that if this is God's design for us, then this is what's going to be truly fulfilling sexually and maritally. So yeah, I think we do a big disservice to men by not sharing this information with them as well. That's whenever I'm asked about giving talks, I'm like, well, are there going to be boys there? Where are the high school boys? Are they going to also be part of this conversation? Because they also need to learn this. Because then when they hit and they try to get married and they're learning, oh, this is a brand new way of thinking about sex. Like, sex is not just on demand. There's responsibility that comes with this. There's knowing when we're fertile and when we're infertile. There's all these myths that they need to know about too. And they have a sexual desire that they need to be aware of, and how that they can use that desire to glorify God too. So I think, yeah, the exclusion of the role of men is kind of a big disservice we play to them and to women, obviously, and to relationships. And that being said, too, I do know, we also don't want to force anyone. So if a couple just finds like, look, I mean, it kind of got to a point with, Joey and I of like, it just worked that like I could just chart and we would just talk about it, and that worked for us. Like we didn't go to appointments together anymore. We went to it when we were married, when we were, engaged, and for a little while after. And then it was like, okay, look, we talk about this. This isn't like something that's awkward in our relationship. So we're good. Like I'm going to chart and we'll discuss afterwards. So you have to make it work for you too. It's not
Absolutely.
like everyone has to be doing it this exact way. It's just, no, when men have that natural family planning mindset, when we give them the opportunity and invite them into that conversation, they also find it very fulfilling.
Because I think when we don't cultivate that with men, I think that continues feeding this idea of how ineffective NFP can be, quote unquote, when they don't have the education behind it, but they see other friends and, they maybe talk to their wife and their wife says, oh yeah, they do NFP or, whatever the case may be. And depending on what their family size looks like, it can easily get judged regardless of who you are. That's just normal. So I think when they can understand like what you're saying in regards to the college course, when they can have a deeper understanding of what's going on, they can really desire that for their relationship, I think, because it really does bring out so much beauty.
I think there was two other things I wanted to bring up. I don't know if we'll have time to cover both of them, but one of them is that as an NFP teacher, I sometimes think not having a baby is going to be what's best for you at this moment. I'm not always on the side of let's have another baby right now. And I think some people find that a little bit surprising. Like, well, if you have a baby, if you have 5 kids back to back, okay, that's great. If you're happy and everything's working for you, great. If you come to me and you have 5 kids back to back and you are losing your mind, you are not sleeping, you and your husband are having no time together, like you are literally drowning, but you come with this idea of like, but I have to be open to having more children. Sure, be open to life. You don't have to do that right now. Like, no, this is where the idea of responsible parenthood, if you are maxed right now, okay, I'm never going to recommend you have tubal ligation or he has a vasectomy or you go on birth control pill. Never. I'm going to say, okay, let's learn your cycle and let's use your God-given faculties and the practice of virtue to abstain from sexual intercourse until you feel confident with your cycle and where you are fertile and when you're infertile. And then you and your husband engage during your time of infertility. And then what happens, and this is something I have seen over and over and over and over and over again in the years. Couples come, they don't want to achieve. They want to avoid for whatever reason. Okay, fine. I still teach you the same thing, right? You're the one that's making the decision on when to engage in intercourse. I'm not. So I'm teaching you, and then you make your decisions. As time unfolds, and I've seen this with so many people, I can think of so many people. I'm done. I'm all done. That expression, I'm all done. Anyway, I don't want to have another baby. And then time moves on. The kids get older. Life gets more manageable. Whatever the stress was, like it's calming down. I'm feeling healthier. My body is getting a break from having babies back to back. Like, so my nutrients are being restored. I'm feeling stronger and better in my body. I'm sleeping more, which means I'm more sane. Like when all the things are getting addressed, okay, then as time moves forward, oh, having another baby doesn't seem like such a bad idea or seem completely unmanageable. We could totally have another baby. And that's one of the beauties of NFP is it's not a no, absolute no, and it's not an absolute yes all the time. It's let's look at the situation we're in, the people that are involved, and let's make an informed decision and then be responsible in our actions to carry out that decision that we've made that honors God and respects each other. Do you know what I mean, Ellie?
Yes, no one is going to force a couple to have intercourse on fertile days. That, you can still be open to life and not have intercourse on fertile days. That those things you don't have to, just because you're not engaging in intercourse on fertile days does not mean that you're not open to life.
Right. Because you're engaging in an act where the exchange of life, right, where there's still a complete act of intercourse, right, where the union of the two people, the male and the female, both have inside of them the intrinsic ability to create life. They have the cellular matter to do that. You're engaging in an act where there's a free exchange of that. There's just no connection of it. Like it's just not resulting in life. But you're still not disrupting that act, which images God. So we always have to respect the act first and foremost because of who it images. And we can't lie about who God is, because then that's what's gotten us into such chaos, is we have lied that God is a generous, life-giving lover that is trustworthy. And so we have, with all of our might, all of the channeling we can of practicing virtue in our marriage, to say that, okay, with my body, I'm going to live out that truth.
Correct. Yeah. So on the days that are infertile, physiologically, it's impossible to achieve a pregnancy. I think this also is a great time to point out just the exact same thing with couples that are struggling with infertility. Just because they are struggling with infertility does not mean that they're not open to life. They're not conceiving on quote unquote fertile days. That's up to God, right? Like there's so many things that we can control, which then in turn helps us feel like we're in control. And ultimately, there's so much of this that is up to God. But we can know when we're fertile and when we're not. Right. And so it's up to him if we achieve pregnancy. Every time we have intercourse on a fertile day on every cycle does not mean that we're going to get pregnant. Right. Is it likely? Sure, because it's a fertile day. But that doesn't mean that every single time we're going to get pregnant. And so, yeah, you can still be open to life and not be achieving on fertile days, or not be having intercourse on fertile days.
Emily, I can't hear you. It looks like you're muted.
Right now? Hey, Amy, you still can't hear me? Something popped. Hold on.
Emily?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You're muted. I can't hear you. Yeah, or something's up.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, now I can hear you. Yeah.
So something popped up on my screen that was really red. Did it cut me off in the middle of that or none of it?
Yeah, it cut you off a little bit in the middle of your sentence.
It was something popped up about internet. It was like a bright, typically it'll say like slow or something.
Okay.
And it's like if it pops up, but this was like a bright red, but I didn't even see the words that it was. So,
okay.
Anyway, not sure where
you were just talking about how you can still be open to life even though you're not conceiving, or even though you're not having intercourse on the fertile day, and that infertile couples are still open to life.
Yes. And so, just because we have intercourse on a fertile day does not mean that we're going to achieve pregnancy just because we did that. Is it likely? Yes, because it's fertile. But ultimately, God is in control. And so you can still be open to life and be having intercourse on fertile days and not achieving pregnancy because of maybe an underlying issue that's causing infertility. Or you can still be open to life and choosing to not have intercourse on fertile days. There is such a thing. I know we've talked about this on another episode. You can have the term contracepting heart. That's different. And that's something that needs to be discerned and addressed. And, we don't want anyone to be walking this, reproductive life of, I cannot get pregnant right now. And I don't want to say for silly reasons, because obviously each situation is different, but we as Catholics, we are not called to just say, I'm not going to have babies. When we get married, that's one of the things is, are you open to life? And that's not the term that's used. That's not the way it sounds, but are you open to having children and raising them in the faith or something like that?
Right.
And so in order to, express that sacrament, we have to say yes. So there is more to that, we don't ever want to be walking a journey that just says we're not going to have babies.
Right.
But ultimately, there's so much we can control, but then there's also so much that is up to God.
Right. And there's a difference between, I just want to have this person in my life, but I don't want to have any children with them.
Right.
Versus, no, I want to be married and we have had children and now I feel like, I feel good. Like I don't really want to have any more children. Okay, well, then you use a method of natural family planning and you avoid a pregnancy. And you do that until you feel like, oh, I actually would like to have another child now. Okay, well, then you change your behavior and you engage in intercourse when you're fertile. And that the church never says, it doesn't say in our vows how many children you have to have, because the church is not so arrogant to say that they know how many children God is going to give you or what God's plan is for you. The church just knows that being open to life means that you're imaging God in your marital act. And that's what you have to do because you're entering into this sacrament that images God on earth, and God is a generous, life-giving lover. And so our acts have to reflect that.
Absolutely.
So the last thing I wanted to say, if we just do like maybe a few more minutes, is on this idea, and I've heard this before. I know I've read it in articles where women, mainly women, I've heard say, women will say, without they don't say birth control, without contraception, women would not be advancing as they are nowadays in the corporate world or in the professional world. Women would not have the advanced degrees that they have if it weren't for something like contraception. And I find that statement, if it is true, to be so disheartening, because to me, when I hear that, what I hear is, for some reason, we have a culture that doesn't allow my body to be functioning as a female body and to achieve what God has created me to do. But we do have a culture that allows men to have fully functioning bodies and achieve what God has called them to. And that is sad. I think that speaks of a sad culture. If I have to shut down a bodily system in order to achieve what I believe God is calling me to. And I say this, and I'm saying it this way because I want to assume goodwill. And I don't believe every woman is going to be a stay-at-home mom. I believe God calls women to different things. And we see that throughout history. The lives of the saints are rich with women who have done many things in their lives. And if God has called you to be a CEO of a big company, that doesn't mean that God says, okay, well, I want you to be this. So that means you should have birth control, you should use contraception and never have children. Well, if you're called to be married and you're still called to do that job, okay, well, then children are also going to be a part of that. So if our culture is set up in a way that doesn't allow those things to happen, or a relationship that we've entered into, again, I think this speaks to the role of men. If we have this idea of relationship where women have to do certain jobs and men do certain jobs, and there's no crossover, there's no mutually, self-gift and support and give and take, well, then how sad is that? Like that, I just find that statement so sad, Emily, that, well, women have achieved great things because of contraception. Like women have had to kill their children in order to achieve great things. Yeah. What sick culture do we live in? But then then the pushback to that is, well, then we meet women like, say, Amy Coney Barrett, right, who's on the Supreme Court and who has school-age children. Like, is that true? Is that true? Like, do women actually have to live in a manner so radically opposed to their feminine genius in order to fulfill God's will for their lives? I don't want to live in that culture. No, thank you. No, thank you, if that's the truth.
Mm-mm.
What do you think, Emily?
Yeah, I just think it's really sad because nobody breaks it down like that, right? On the surface, which is what everyone is comfortable talking about, we need to have these choices or these options. The word choice just gets thrown around so predominantly. We need to be able to have these choices in order to live our lives. And that's such, when you incorporate death or have death as an option, how can anyone succeed, whether that's the woman we're talking about or just our culture in general? I mean, I can't, it makes me think of the Mother Teresa quote, and I can't think of, I remember the situation, but you can't, a country that promotes things like, for example, we're talking about contraception here, but also abortion, just having that option, so someone can still do what they want to do or what they think they're being called to do. But if, a life results from that, then that's definitely going to get in the way. A country that is okay with that, that's just it's a really sad, I wish I could think of what she said. I know someone will be hearing this, and it had to do with the Clintons. She was something she said, Mother Teresa said to, I think it was Hillary Clinton. And it was something about a country that's okay with abortion it's not ever okay.
Right. It's not a healthy culture. It's not it's not thriving. Exactly. If we can make, I don't know what we can, I do. There's so many other options, there's just the lack of creativity too, to think that there's just these black and white choices. It's like, no, there's just so many different ways that family life can look, and spouses can, fulfill what God's asking them to. Like, there's a lot of room for creativity. And so to say, like, we need birth control and contraception to do this, I think it also, I don't like the way that it paints women, because we want just the reality. When women engage in intercourse, just like men, life can result from that. Different from men, we are the ones that carry that life, grow the life, birth the life, and then feed the life with our bodies. Our bodies are much more involved in the process of bringing new life into the world. Thanks be to God. It's a gift of our feminine nature. And so if with that, we also feel that so that's the reality. And then we feel that we are really called to this specific role in our wider community. We still have to act within those bounds. We don't get, if we're caught between like, okay, well then what do we do? Well, of course we don't mutilate our bodies in order to achieve some superficial goal. If that's truly God's will for us, then there will be a way for both of those to be married together and for that to still be the outcome. Like, we won't be able to thwart God's plans with letting our reproductive system act as it's supposed to act. Does that make sense, Emily?
Yes. We have to, we have to continue to mirror God in order to really fulfill what we were created for. So right. We can have this idea that we're supposed to go chase whatever it is that we're chasing. But if we just completely sterilize or completely, shut down that other part of our body, which we're also called to, that doesn't equate at all.
Yeah, it doesn't make us look that smart or that great when we are saying, well, I just want to have casual sex and not have children come from it. Like, I want to be promiscuous. Like, I don't think that term is PC anymore, but that's what you're saying. At least just like, let's just be honest about it. Okay. Like, okay, that's what you want to be. Like, that's what we want. That's what we're choosing in this moment,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that is generally the desire when that gets talked about, for sure.
And I want to, I guess we have to close now. I know I have to go get the kids up, but like, I think this is not meant to be I'm not on a high horse here. The reason I feel like I'd like to talk about this is because I live in this culture, and I believe with all of my heart in what I'm sharing, and it's hard to live it in a culture that's telling you all the time in like a megaphone, the opposite is true. And so but by God's grace, I feel like that's where it's, well, how can we impact the culture in a way to say, you guys, we're heading down a path that is not good for us. It's not good for our physical health, our mental health, our relational health, for our wider community, for how we view children, how we view marriage, how we view family, what our priorities are. We need a course correct. And I think that obviously change can happen at any stage, but I'm just hopeful for, young people coming up and this pro-life the amount of young people that are pro-life, and not just in the no abortion sense, but in more sense of that word of sex has a very specific meaning. Children are a part of it. Commitment is so necessary to enter into those acts. Being in a relationship, being married for the whole of life, in good times and in bad, welcoming children, raising children, like putting in that hard work, sacrificing, like those are all wonderful, beautiful, good values that won't detract from you fulfilling God's plan for you. It's just like, how much I need that message so much. Like I need someone constantly in that loudspeaker saying, don't be unafraid from God. Like, don't be afraid of God. Don't be afraid to trust him. Emily, I think that is one thing I value about your friendship so much, is that when I was having Max, before having Max, when I was going to school, when I was experiencing so much doubt, I feel like all of our conversations always came back to, why don't we just trust God and try? Like, just trust God and try. And those two little things were like just enough for me to just, okay, I'm just going to get up, even though I don't want to get up, and I'm just going to take one more step. Like, I'm just going to try. Because it's so hard. It's so hard to trust God and to try sometimes, especially when you feel like you just keep failing, or you're really scared, or everything just seems insurmountable. To trust God and to try. That's all. Anything else, Emily?
That's beautiful.
Okay.
No, that's great, Amy.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us this week. Thanks so much, Emily.
It's great to see you.
You too. I love chatting with you. All right, guys. We will see you in our next episode. Bye.
Bye, guys.
That wraps up another episode of the NFP Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found our discussion enlightening and empowering. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear from you. Please connect with us by sending us an email with your questions and stories to thenfpshow@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with more insights, tips, and heartfelt conversations about natural family planning. Until then, love responsibly.